Okay, hello boys and girls, and welcome to Vassals of Kingsgrave, a community podcast. You are listening to the second episode of Creature Chat, a podcast series where we chat about creatures of all shapes and sizes. And today we are going to be chatting about a creature of a very particular shape and size, and that creature is the dragon. I'm your host. My name is Peter. I'm known as Shellfish, and I'm joined by Michal.
Hi guys, inkasrain on the Discord and former forums.
And Sara.
Hi everyone, it's Sara, aka DrBlood.
And Zander.
Hey, it's Zander, also known as the Lord Baron.
And Marie.
Hi everyone, this is Marie or Nymeria on the Discord.
And Ben.
Hey everyone, it's Ben, our King Jucio on the Discord.
And Adam.
Hey, this is Adam, also known as drownedsnow, and I give the source material 5 dragon scales out of 5.
Yes, I do believe we have a few veterans of Dragon Cast today on the call, but this is not a Dragon Cast, although this cast is very much about dragons. So all of you were very excited to talk about dragons, so let's start with defining what they are. So would you please tell me, what is a dragon?
Big lizard.
Oh,
Big lizard.
Big lizard is what I just...
like I would say, it's got wings and fangs and breathes fire, but that's not always true.
That's always the case.
My favorite dragon is the Komodo dragon, so he has no wings.
But he is a big lizard.
He's just a big gross boy. With a bad mouth.
A big gross boy.
A big
A
snake
germ
that usually
warfare.
breathes fire and typically has legs and wings. Maybe.
But not all
has,
Yeah, typically.
but not all the time. Yeah. Sometimes they have 4 legs, sometimes they have 2 legs. It's a big debate. Sometimes
I
they
don't
have no
think
legs.
Chinese
Sometimes
dragons
they
have
stubby.
Yeah,
legs
Chinese
or
dragons
wings,
don't
right?
really have wings.
Sometimes
No,
they
Chinese
have
dragons have
stubby
little
arms.
but
I was
they
gonna
don't
say,
have
like sometimes they have stubby arms.
Like
Yeah,
Tyrannosaurus Rex
so-
arm.
So can we put
Useful.
down magical
T-Rex
reptile,
arms.
maybe?
Yeah, that's a good.
A dragon is a
lizard.
magical
Satisfying.
reptile that has a varying number of limbs.
Yes.
But what is it that makes them so magical?
I think
It's
they're
that you can make wishes
universally-
on them?
You can make wishes on dragons? I've never heard this. Please elaborate.
You know, if you collect all 7 Dragon Balls. I don't know.
Oh, that is some sort of Eastern animation show that you're talking about.
There's actually lore with dragons granting wishes though, like in Arthurian legends and Eastern mythology, and it's not like the main thing they do, but it is a thing sometimes.
Now, sometimes you beat a dragon into submission and it might grant you a wish or help you out.
I mean, I think that the main magical element is just that they're unlike anything that is actually documented in nature, right? I mean, they're mythological or fantasy
Yeah.
or however you want to characterize
Breathing
that.
fire or ice or whatever it is,
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, they're often
extreme ages.
or talking.
very intelligent.
Like how often monsters are these hybrids or like chimeras of many different existing animals, and I suppose dragons are a bit like that. Usually they have bat's wings, but that they're kind of like a mixture of a snake and a cat and a bird or a bat or something like that.
A cat?
Yeah.
Well, maybe the
whiskers on the Chinese dragons, very catfishy.
I don't know if
Yeah.
for me the cat part is due to movies picturing dragons with a cat-like behavior, like How to Teach Your Dragon or whatever, or The Dragon Prince, where it's a bit of a cat/dog situation. And I don't know if that came before, but ever since I watched those, I kind of picture my cat, and I actually call her my little dragon sometimes.
Oh,
It's
nice.
just the way she she's perched on a high place in my flat or stuff like that. She doesn't have wings, but but yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I also have like a dragon cat association. Like maybe it's partly because some of what I like of the dragons that I've read about have like kind of persnickety, very developed personalities. But there's also like that pose that cats go in where like they kind of tuck their
Wiggle the butt a little.
It's not loafing, but it's like when they kind of like lay down and like their hindquarters are higher than their head, and like to me that's a very dragonish pose. So I have like a somewhat mammalian association with dragons in addition to like there being reptiles.
I would go along
Mine
with
is
that.
in another dragon pose right now where she's all tucked in a circle, with like her face under her paws and her tail, and it does make me think of a dragon, but I don't know what came before, like if that association, where does it come from? Does it come from movies making that association for me, or
Maybe, yeah.
So I'm thinking
to
now
me,
about
it's more like lions and tigers, that like aggressive pose that like dragons get oftentimes, like they're gonna pounce or attack, or it seems very similar to like big cats.
Yeah, but I think what we're talking about is actually
accurate.
like resting poses, much more than like a lounging.
No, I know, that's
cat.
what I'm saying. Like I think of more of like the aggressive pose.
Yeah, interesting.
Can we think of furry dragons besides Falkor, the luck dragon from the Neverending Story?
The carpet dragon, Falkor? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the only one.
Is that what he's called? I thought he was a luck dragon.
No, I don't know. He looks like a shaggy carpet.
I'm
trying to think. Was there not like another like Muppet type dragon thing from the 80s?
Maybe.
I'm trying to remember.
Let's see.
There's
nothing
Puff
in the
Magic
Muppets is
Dragon,
actually
who
like.
We always know what made him magic.
But even like
Wait,
traditionally, I
Muppets
can't
isn't
think of
real?
any ones that aren't scaly.
Don't they have beards though? Don't like.
I feel
In the
like
Dragon
many
Prince, they
Eastern
definitely
dragons
are.
might
Some,
have beards.
Yeah.
well, again, like there's like the Chinese dragon with the whiskers, which aren't like.
I think of
Kinda
those as
cat.
barbels, like the catfish, like the barbels that catfish have, where they're like whiskers, but they're still fleshy. They're not like,
Ugh.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the baubles are used by many modern depictions of dragons as well.
Mhm.
But I feel like the bat wings are a thing that like they maybe in some like medieval or classical depictions they might have birds' wings as well, but I feel like we've kind of shifted towards leathery bat wings in a big way in culture.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the like less feathery, or even scaly wings kind of makes them more menacing. But just word of warning: don't Google furry dragons, because I tried to. I was like, well, let me see. Are there any other furry dragons?
No,
That's a different thing
The image
entirely.
results were not what I was expecting. I might need.
Oh man, poor Adam. That
There's a
is
discussion
truly
on
a cursed moment.
mythology.stackexchange.com about how East Asian dragons are very different from Western dragons, and they wouldn't have fur and what we think of, but they would have beards or manes. And there's a Studio Ghibli dragon that definitely is maned in that way.
Oh yeah, is
So,
that from the
another-
Spirited Away?
I think so, yeah. But it also has like chicken feet, so
yeah,
there's a
chicken
combination of factors going on here.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that most sort of, at least like mainstream fantasy dragons have been kind of streamlined into their own thing almost, and those like chimera-esque features of being a mixed match of different sorts of creatures has kind of faded back into the background. That people are so familiar with dragons that they kind of expect a certain thing, and that it's not like a hodgepodge of like, okay, this is from a goat and this is from a chicken or something like that.
There's in Mesoamerican like Aztec culture, there's Quetzalcoatl, who's like a winged serpent, but he's not like a dragon in normal sense.
he has
But,
feathers.
yeah.
doesn't he?
He has feathers, yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of a personality does Quetzalcoatl have, or what kind of a god? Does he have like a sphere or like sphere of influence, or what's his deal?
He's supposed to be the creator of mankind. I'm not familiar. I don't want to speak on this without without knowing exactly. I just remembered him off the
I'm
top
trying
of
to
my
remember.
head.
Wasn't there like a conquistador that like claimed to be him or something at one point?
Oh, they love to do that, so probably.
Yeah.
But that brings up something interesting, which is that like there are like it's such a pervasive image in mythology. Like even if you have East Asian dragons being different from Western dragons and whatever, and like obviously our concept today is kind of garbled between everything, but like there is this kind of idea of like a big ass snake that's super powerful. And like can either fly or do magic or whatever.
Has
and
wings or some form of like wing-like appendages.
Yeah. And I don't know, like I always like part of my like childishness of myself is like I just want to believe that dragons used to exist. Like it doesn't matter if they did. I just kind of want to like have that little idea. Because
I think there's enough in the fossil record to suggest that dragon-esque things existed for sure, right? Like, I mean, we have enormous, like a pterodactyl or any of the pterosaurs or like, any kind of, I don't know. I feel like for any dragon that you can point to, there's some kind of like evolutionary record that suggests, somebody.
There's also all the giant serpents out there too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's this huge monitor lizard, like kind of like a Komodo dragon that was like huge, maybe I don't remember the exact size, but definitely dragon size that existed as recently as 50,000 years ago, so that could have been concurrent with human beings as well. I think it was in Australia, but went extinct.
There's also like
obviously Australia probably does still have dragons. Get real.
Well, they do have crocodiles, which are almost there.
There's also like looking at the bones of these of a lot of the the dinosaurs now. Like I don't know if I was a person a long time ago, would I think that they're like a mythical creature and then invent myths around them? If I were to find some type of fossil of like a pterodactyl head or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw like this Greek urn or vase where like they had a depiction of a griffin, and there was speculation that it was based on a sort of a dinosaur skull. It wasn't a triceratops, but it was one of those with the big like the sort of head plate, and that the sort of that depiction of a griffin would have been based on that sort of ancient fossil find.
There's a scholar called Adrienne Mayer who has that as a theory. Like she argues that the Greeks were very fascinated by the fossilized bones that they would have unearthed in farming and like for with earthquakes and things like that. And she has found records that these fossilized bones were actually taken to temples and collected as offerings. So she makes this case that not only were they, sort of well regarded, or not only were they noticed, but they were actually like regarded as important. And so she suggests that, there are like ways that the type of bones that would have been unearthed in the Mediterranean area translate sort of visually into some of the creatures, like some of the most famous creatures from Greek mythology. But her work is just fascinating.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
See, and I think too, unlike most mythological creatures, dragons are almost always seen as like godlike or some sort of form of elder god, or they always seem to be placed higher than
they're deified.
Other. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Like I think in many fantasy settings or mythologies, like creatures such as griffins or manticores or chimeras or stuff like that, they might be like the result of a wizard's experimentation or something. But dragons are often sort of set apart that they're usually like beings that existed before mankind, and that they were like part of the weave of the cosmos in a way, I suppose.
And I think even part of it is the fact that dragons, unlike a lot of mystical creatures, tend to have different goals. I mean, like very few mystical creatures like are interested in, human affairs or can even speak. But dragons oftentimes they can speak. They want, they might have a hoard or gold, or they might be interested in like man-made things. Like they get all these other properties that like you don't give necessarily to a minotaur or a sphinx or a griffin or anything like that. In some stories, but
Yeah, and there's sort of like an innate magicalness to the dragons often, that like their blood, drinking their blood or making potions from their blood or their parts might they might be very potent, their parts, in a way.
And they're often a key to some sort of magical mystery in a story.
So there is some idea of like a translation of the Leviathan or the Leviathan in the Bible being a dragon, which would, interestingly, from the very, very, very tiny amount of research I did by reading the very small Jewish encyclopedia entry on dragons, it seems like they are more associated with water in, like, again, if you're translating this, I always learned that the Leviathan was just a gigantic fish, that it's the same fish in the Jonah story.
I always think of it as a whale, usually.
Yeah.
I always thought of it as like a sea snake type thing.
So I think that's more of a Christian translation. I feel like serpent, something serpent-like is more of a Christian translation, but obviously there's a lot of variability here. But also not every source says that. And then you're getting into mythology and things like that, and people kind of translating things differently. But I did actually look it up, and there is no like Hebrew word for dragon in modern Hebrew. It's just dragon, and it just spelled out phonetically, which I found really interesting.
That is really interesting. In the Anglo-Saxon poetry, there's a poem called The Whale, and part of it is a description of like quote unquote whale behavior from like the medieval bestiaries, but then the other part of it is a story about how that's inherited from this Leviathan tradition, where it talks about how he pretends basically to be an island, and the sailors think it's a refuge, and then he dives beneath the ocean and they all drown. But it becomes a metaphor for like false hope or false promise outside of faith, basically, or like if you put your faith in something that isn't reliable or isn't, so it's like temptation.
Oh, cool.
And
is that the Leviathan?
Yeah. So the at least inherited in the Anglo-Saxon tradition, it is very much like a sea creature, a giant whale or something like that.
I feel like there's this phrase, "here be dragons," and like on a lot of maps they would draw dragons to sort of indicate that this place is unexplored and dangerous. And I suppose in those sorts of maps you might have whales or sea serpents as well in those sorts of places, that they're kind of like a symbol for the unknown and treacherous, perhaps, in a way.
That's interesting, because we have as you all mentioned, like there's that association of dragons with like kind of eldritch knowledge, right? Where like when is it Sigurd burns his fingers cooking Faufnir's heart and licks the blood, he learns how to speak all languages, I think. Am I just like conflating like 17 different traditions here? But or like in Greek tradition, like somebody has his ears licked out by serpents because he like saved their babies, and he can understand all the languages and hear like nature stuff. So like
the original ear candle.
Right. Just get a serpent, like you can use it like a Q-tip. But yeah, so there's a sense that like the wish granting, or like the sort of knowledge bestowal is just something like a little bit beyond normal human capability, maybe, which ties in, I think, Peter, with what you were saying about like the exploration, where they're like just beyond the boundaries of like what's known to humanity or in nature.
And then like we obviously get to like the classical Western idea of dragons, like the Arthurian idea, which is like it's just something there for you to slay, and like a damsel kidnapping creature. And yeah,
that sort of image of Saint George and the dragon with the virgin sacrifice. But I mean that's present in Greek mythology as well, with Perseus and Andromeda and the sea monster Katos, I think it's called, or something like that.
Kato.
It's basically
Sure,
sort of the same tableau as Saint George and the dragon.
There's also sea monster that's comparable to that one that Hercules fights outside of Troy, and he rescues Hesione, but he does it by letting himself be eaten, and then basically like fighting his way out, like Guardians of the
Is that the
Galaxy
Hydra?
style.
Oh,
Or is
that's
it
in
just
the
a
movie.
Disney one?
No, it's a different one. It's a different one.
Can you recall the name of that sea creature?
I will find it. The
Is
only
it
thing I
the
can
Cardipus?
I don't think so. Hold on one second. Let me
Okay.
check. But anyway,
Yeah,
so
I
Hercules
definitely
was
like
exactly
the
what I'm saying.
Disney's Hercules, the Hydra in that one, and I guess I sort of think of it as in the category dragon in a way, but I guess it's a scaly beast that the hero slays and wins the day.
but like if you cut off like the dragon's head, like 2 more don't grow out of it.
No, but the visual design in that movie is definitely
Yeah.
evocative of the idea of a dragon. Unfairly, I think, but
Apparently, Peter, it's known by the same name as the one that Perseus killed, so it's also Kados. Or Kidos. Or Kade.
No, cool. So do we think that that's the classic dragon story, the brave hero going out to slay the dragon that's threatening the village?
I think it's what? I mean,
Personally, yes.
Western.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't there a dragon that St. George kills?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the dragon becomes increasingly associated with the devil in medieval and early modern Christian interpretations. So like that's a popular reading of Beowulf, is that it's just like he's fighting the devil at the end because the dragon is much more abstract than Grendel or his mom. I don't necessarily buy that, but
So that would be like the dragon as the personification of evil in a way.
yeah, they do become very very demonified and much more closely associated with the serpent in the Garden of Eden. I think that becomes a
There's
fusion.
also Egyptian thoughts on serpents. There's like Apophis, which is like the enemy of Ra, who's the Lord of the gods. Like he's seen as like this creator of chaos and disruption.
Oh, so
Yeah,
is it
and-
like
Yeah,
that
sun
kind of
god,
myth
snake
that the
god.
sun god is wrestling with the snake of darkness every night before he rises triumphant in the morning?
Yep.
Yeah, in parallel with with Osiris and Set. Yeah, that there's like a rivalry. That actually is also a part of the Rig Veda, which dates back to like 1500 BC. It's a sacred text, a sacred Sanskrit text. And there's Indra slew Vrtra, which was like a giant dragon, basically, or a serpent, and released the waters back into the world. But that's an interesting kind of tie-in with the sea monster idea. But that's like one of the oldest attestations of the like man slay serpent dynamic or kind of formula. Yeah. Calvert
So
Watkins
is there
has a
like
whole-
is there medieval like lore? Because I always thought that there was some medieval lore of like dragons as kind of like positive, almost like kind of godlike creatures, like revered, or is that more of like our modern kind of take on some of that?
I think they were mostly threatening in Western medieval, but I wonder whether the more sort of nuanced or even admiring version isn't a fusion or an infusion from a more Eastern tradition. Because I do think, I think most of the dragons in the Western tradition are adversarial.
They were used in like heraldry and stuff like that. So I don't know. Like it did seem that certain areas like didn't think of them in the same way like as like the evil figure. But I don't know.
Wasn't Arthur like, Uther Pendragon, there's a dragon association there.
There's a lot of that where he was like blessed by.
Yeah, I do believe the author's heraldry is like a red dragon on a white field, and that's I suppose the symbol of England as well.
Wales.
Wales.
The Welsh dragon.
Okay, forgive me.
Yeah, they do. That's interesting because the Welsh like folk tradition does have a much more, and the kind of Celtic folk tradition does have a much more like positive association, or at least a kind of like a positive
Celtic,
understanding relationship with dragons. Like they drink milk and visit. So it's like they're
milk?
kind of
It is definitely blue milk.
No, it's actually breast milk. So I guess
Like
depending on whose breast.
people's breast milk?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
like
That
other
was like dragons were like obsessed with in Celtic folklore.
Hold on
Dragons
a
were like
second.
obsessed with breast milk.
Oh, I guess they weren't going for the virgins then.
They would just
Yeah,
they
it's
would
like-
just roll around and be like, "Oh, let me bless your baby." Hold on a second.
Yeah, no, like
Well,
they,
I mean,
they would say,
Dany does nurture dragons in A Game of Thrones as well, so.
Oh my gosh, you know what? It's like it's 1643. I thought we were past this. Okay, get out of here, dragon. Get out of here.
Well, it's like, yeah, no. So they say like there's a legend that
Yokers.
if you accidentally let a snake drink breast milk, so you have to like you know it's like a don't spill it
Oh
back.
my gosh, this.
How do you
sounds
accidentally
If
let
a
a
snake
snake
drinks
drink
breast milk,
your
it
milk?
turns into a dragon. Which is
Just
like,
had this cup
like-
of breast milk right here. Oh, I knocked it over. Oh, my pet snake.
Snake's like, I'm not gonna bite you. I'm just trying to level up. Come on.
right, exactly. Like be cool, man.
I had not heard this.
Yeah, it's like a big they also drink
Like,
like,
you know, now I mean, I'm sure if I'd scrolled down like on like the furry dragon thing, I'm sure this would have come up.
I sort of wonder how
Apparently.
much of this is like connected to like how scary the snakes were in a particular area. You know?
that's very interesting. Like if there were
Snakes
areas that
are
had
always
venomous
scary,
snakes, you're
Michal.
like,
I don't
stay
know
the
what
hell
you're
away
talking
from that
about.
thing.
No, snakes are always scary,
mean-
but like you're more likely to get
How prevalent
like
they are.
you know, they're the whole like no snakes in Ireland thing. Like they're just not as big of a deal in Western countries.
I was gonna say Patrick drove them away.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't really
no,
know what
I
I'm
think
saying,
you're
because
right.
it doesn't really correlate necessarily with like dragons being evil in Western cultures and you know being less evil.
I think humans
Yeah, I
have
do
a
feel
very like natural built-in reaction to snakes and just, I mean, lizards of all
definitely.
kinds to be like, fuck no. You know, like that's like years and years of
Yeah, I feel like snakes and spiders have a
Snake
special
equals
place in
death.
sort of like
Yeah.
people have a very strong reaction to them.
and spiders shouldn't, you would think, because they're such small creatures, shouldn't be that big of a deal to us. But because so many of them are poisonous, we don't have the same reactions we do to like a cockroach or something, which is disgusting. But we're not like, oh shit, I got to get away from it. It's gonna kill me. We're like, oh, I got to get away from it because it's gross, or let's.
Oh,
get it
that's
outta
my
here.
reaction to
Like-
cockroach. That
You think a cockroach is gonna kill you?
there's some very deep part of my brain that needs to escape immediately.
I'm
Think-
thinking
what was
that
I-
one of
I was
Michal's
reading
ancestors was
there
killed
was
by a
something I was-
cockroach.
The other day where they were talking about just snakes, like, it's even if you don't like realize that there's like a snake consciously, like you might see a snake in the corner of your eye, or even like maybe on the TV and you don't really realize, like people will freeze before they do anything else. It's like an instinct. Like people
Yeah.
are like, oh shit, snake, and they go, oh wait, what's that? That's a snake, before they even realize it. Your body's like, cool down, man, just like hold
Yeah,
on.
like it's in your
Danger.
spine and not your brain, the reaction to it, almost like muscle memory. And like that sort of circuit gets activated in my brain sometimes falsely. Like I'll see a wire or something or a stick and I'm like, oh fuck, a snake.
Oh yeah.
But then it'll be like, oh, false alarm.
You're like, it's just my hanger.
Yeah.
We had a snake in our
I
driveway.
don't know. I
My
had
daughter
a
was
lot
like
of
2 months old.
copperheads in my backyard that I had to kill when I was like a kid.
We had a snake in our driveway. It
There
was
was a
like
lot of. Go
3
ahead.
feet long when my daughter was like 4 months old. And I saw it. I had that kind of like where I saw it out of the corner of my eye, and I literally just like basically threw it at my husband. I was like, "Take the baby and go!" And he was like, "What's happening?" But I couldn't like say anything. I was just like, "Just get her out of here." It was very big. It was a
Oh, the car,
it was like 4 feet
reverse!
long. It was just like-
Run it over!
That's a
Game
cool sort
resolved.
of connection to the primeval in a way, almost.
It's interesting because like I mean maybe there are poisonous dragons somewhere in there, but like the scary thing about snakes is that they can poison you, right? Like some of them can choke you to death, but like that's a minority. And somehow like that isn't part of at least what I perceive as like dragon legend. You know, like they either eat you or they burn you or keep
Yeah,
you
I
forever.
I feel like there's that sort of idea of snakes' personality that they're sort of treacherous and like deceitful in a way, and maybe that comes from like people stepping on snakes accidentally and they just sort of lying in the grass in the way.
Right? The serpent in the garden, and I mean, how long has that been around? There's a lot of like the evil serpent type stories in a lot of cultures.
I would
Yeah.
argue that the fire breathing is an extension of the, like mouth dangerous, very bad, stay away. But I will
Yeah,
also
there's
say
not a
that
lot of
the
poison dragons,
like
but yeah.
what happens to limbs after they get bit by snakes, specifically like very poisonous snakes. I mean, sometimes it looks like you were burned with how like your skin starts to
like turns
bloat up.
black.
And there's a lot of the body reacts in weird ways to it. Yeah.
And people on fire.
And it feels like you're burning apparently.
I will say though, just because I have to, that the dragon in Beowulf is poisonous and he breathes fire, so you get a double whammy.
Oh, it's been a long time since I've revisited Beowulf.
Okay, so we've kind of been all over the place here talking about dragons, and I guess we've gone into their origins, kind of like where the myth originates and the earliest depictions and stuff like that. And maybe we could now go into the different sorts of dragons that exist in different stories, and like maybe I can start us off and ask, are dragons people?
I seem to remember some myths of like dragons turning into people and things of that nature. I'm not sure exactly.
It's not super common, but like there are people that are cursed to be dragons as well in some stories.
Yeah, Serafina is a YA series that I actually recommend, and some of the dragons in that can transform into humans, and it's very interesting because they still maintain their like dragonish personalities, and they're kind of just like, what the fuck, like humans are gross, but they look like humans.
I'm anamorphing into a dragon right now.
I mentioned Faufnir earlier, but he was originally a human being, and then he got turned into a dragon by a cursed ring, I believe.
Yeah, there's in the Chronicles of Narnia, I think the character Eustace turns into a dragon when he takes something from a dragon's hoard on an island.
Yeah, and that's actually some of Lewis's best kind of like horror writing. Well, not that he does a lot of that in those books, but
yeah, he eats the corpse of the other dragon, like instinctively. It's a pretty cool little plot line in that book. I was asking, like, are dragons people? Like, you guys went into that, like, people turning into dragons and stuff like that, but I was thinking more like...
do you consider them
do
sentient,
they have
or
sort of personhood, or are they just wild beasts to be slain? Are they just threatening, or are they, like, different depictions of dragons? Like, sometimes they are capable of speech, and sometimes they have their own rich societies and cultures, but sometimes they are just, like, the marauding beast that you have to slay.
Like the Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire dragons, I wouldn't classify as people. There's definitely something going on there with like the way they, only let certain people ride them and all that. But a lot of other dragons, I mean, they talk. They, like you said, they've got culture and history and magic, and they're definitely, kind of a human level species at that point, I guess, or above human level maybe even.
So, has anyone read the Temeraire novels by Naomi Novik? Really? No one? Oh my god.
Yes,
okay.
I have.
Okay, good.
I'm not sure. I don't know if the series is done or not, but I've stopped at some point. But I've read at least 5 or 6 books, I think.
Yeah, there's like 9 or 10 or 11 books. I definitely bailed toward the end, but her portrayal of dragons is probably one of the portrayals that made me love dragons so much, because the dragons in her books are completely, like, I was at a reading of hers once, and I don't remember why she said this, but she said, like, they're not people, but they are human. I'm sorry, they're not human, but they are people. And like that really like stuck out to me, and there's a lot of interrogation in those stories of like what makes a being worthwhile, and if a dragon isn't as strong, but it still has, intelligence and feels pain and whatever, like what rights does that give it over a dragon that's like a great, aerial fighter and stuff like that. I actually really recommend dipping into those books. They're a lot of fun, and also the dragons are hugely snarky and try frequently to understand Napoleonic people's customs, and a lot of the time they're like, that doesn't make any sense.
Is that book series kind of like alternative history in a way? Like
Yeah,
that
it's basically the Napoleonic Wars with dragons treated as kind of class, like ship class, so that they're the aerial corps, and the dragons are ranked by their like abilities and size and stuff like that. And there are a lot of these books. There, as I said, some of them get really bogged down in the travelogue type thing because she is kind of emulating the master and commander thing. So it's like, and then we traveled more across the desert. But some of them are like absolutely delightful with a ton of like dragon dialogue and culture clashes, and like they go to China at one point, and the difference in the way the dragons are treated in China, like as opposed to kind of like workhorses in the West, is really interesting.
Yeah,
definitely recommend looking into them.
Yeah, same. I should actually give them a reread, but and I'm this
and that's
makes
big
me
of Marie
think.
because the French are not the good guys.
No, I know. I know. Fighting against Napoleon, right? But I've also reread recently the Robin Hobb's books with the realms of the elderlings, and there are dragons in there who are not actually in the first, maybe her most known series doesn't really have dragons in them, but then it all ties together, and it's like the return of the dragons in that universe, and they are very human-like creatures who believe they are better than everyone else, and they actually consider humans like we would consider cattle, right? Except they don't eat them, but they basically consider them at the service and really less intelligent than they are, basically mostly because dragons live a long time, and one key feature of those dragons is that they have ancestral memory, so they are born with the memories of their ancestors, and it's actually yeah, amazing books in general, but the dragon part is quite interesting. They have a whole, they are born as serpents, and then they migrate and everything, and they make a cocoon, and that's when they are reborn as dragons. It's actually,
that's cool.
yeah, I would definitely recommend them as well.
What series was it?
It's Robin Hobb. So her most known books, and I'm sorry because I'm blanking a little because there's always been the French titles for me, but it's like Assassin's Quest and Royal Assassin and Assassin's Apprentice, I think, is the first trilogy. But I will type it out. But you've
cool.
got kind of like 4 main series they all tie together. 5 actually now. I mean, those are great books. They are definitely in my top 3, and I honestly cannot say if I prefer them to A Song of Ice and Fire or not. And it's a complicated
genetic
question.
memory thing especially sounds very cool.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like dragons often have these kinds of like bloodlines, and very well, at least in the Warcraft series, these different dragon flights of different colors, and I guess it's a little bit like that in Dungeons and Dragons as well, that there's kind of like they have this lineage that they're kind of upholding and maintaining in a way.
I guess in these books, the point of the dragons is really to be a mirror for humanity, because they are considering that the world is theirs in the same way that humans do. And when they come back into the world, because they were almost extinct for a while, it's a big clash for the humans who are like, well, no, you cannot just go and eat my sheep. That's not how it works. And the dragon's like, of course that's how it works. I mean, I can eat it, so I will. And I think it's obviously a bit blunt, but there's more nuance in the way they are similar but different to humans.
Yeah, I mean, that is interesting because, like, if you regard dragons as people, but then they still act in a very dragon-like manner in being marauding beasts who eat your cattle and maybe your children as well, like, then they would deserve to be slain in the interests of the humans, but would you still sort of think of them as people and or grant them that personhood?
I mean, in the parallel that is made in the books is that if we go by your logic, we are beasts because we are basically eating other animals, and we have a very organized way of killing and eating them. But it's in that book the dragons think of that in a similar way.
So they consider themselves to be superior to humans, and that we are at the level of prey for them.
They don't exactly prey on humans, but yeah, we are kind of the servants in their minds.
Yeah, I feel like that's a big theme in a lot of dragon stories, or at least more modern ones, like the idea that they're so exponentially powerful, like so much beyond what like humans are capable of, and he can defend, like this is a big debate in Game of Thrones and Song of Ice and Fire, like is it moral to even have like these nuclear weapons that it can conquer a city and annihilate it in like 5 minutes? And that's really interesting to me, in that we still a big part of dragon storytelling is about like the relationship between this hugely powerful being and the allegedly puny, humans who can sometimes still take it down. And sometimes, there's more of an accord. But I do feel like there is a certain thread of like dealing with something that is just, powerful to a degree that you can't function with.
It's kind of like a power fantasy to kind of think about being the dragon yourself. I mean, if you control it, like, I think there's a good scene in Game of Thrones season 1 when Viserys is in the bath with the one of Dany's handmaidens. What's her name again? Is it Doria or something? But she's describing like why she's into dragons, like they're big and powerful and they can fly anywhere they want and nobody's gonna mess with them, and just like that feeling of like just power, I suppose.
I think it's interesting that in a couple of the examples, it's not just the physical power, but the lifespan is so exponentially greater than what humans can aspire to. And I think, with lifespan comes knowledge, right? And that's amplified by the genetic memory, Marie, that you were talking about. But I don't know. I mean, I think that's a very, very important aspect, is that not just that they can do more than we can, but also that they have known and experienced so much more, like almost on a kind of geological scale rather than a human one. So it's like they exist almost in a different reality for that reason.
Yeah, I feel like that ties into the whole, like, ancient creatures, wiser than us, the sort of deification of them we do with the fact that they're involved in so many, at least like serpents and dragon-like creatures are tied into so many belief systems across the world.
I think it's interesting to think that, first of all, that a source of that much knowledge and power could exist or coexist with us in the world, but then also that like we might have access to it in either a relationship with them or communication with them on one hand, or by conquering them on the other, right? Like if you eat the dragon's heart, or if you drink the dragon's blood, you get the dragon's powers, and you can kind of conquer them.
Put
in
the
that
dragon
way.
heartstring in your wand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, or you share the dragon's heart, and like a dragon heart, literally, like he gives you one of his hearts. Yeah, man, in Zelda, those dragon scales are useful.
Oh, is my
I
audio
was talking
still whining?
about. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna try and be a little more quiet then.
Oh, you're the dragon glue holding all this together.
But like, so because dragons are so ancient, I mean, we don't have them in like, modern times, obviously, so we have to assume that either they died off or something weird happened. So whenever like a dragon tries to show up in something kind of like in modern time. Either it's like a completely alternate world, or it's like Reign of Fire, where they like hibernating and destroy the world or something along those lines. Or you get weird ones. Like there's an anime I'm trying to remember where like the dragons like they existed, but like humanity has just hidden them forever, and like they like hide as like fighter jets. They have like armor that looks like a fighter jet. It's very weird.
Sounds like a Gundam type thing, and I don't go for the Gundam stuff.
Oh, I love Gundam, but it's like no, it's just like they, like the dragons exist, but people can't know about it. So like, like they, they've just hidden them as like big machines and stuff. It's just weird stuff like that.
That honestly just sounds like that 3 kids in a trench coat thing. Like
it's such a weird. I think I watched a couple episodes of it. I think it's called Dragon Pilot. I think that's what it was. And like it's like, oh, they're wearing this weird clunky armor. Then suddenly it just looks like an F-15, and you're like, what? Like that would never work. like they're flying around. You're like,
it's like the fact that like in Transformers, every like Transformer has to have their logo of whatever faction they're a part of on them somewhere.
Bro,
yeah,
those are
look,
called
it's
prison
an
tats.
F-15. There's an F-15. Why does it have a Decepticon logo on it though?
It's
Yeah,
the scale for me. Like,
it's
how
like,
does a giant robot turn into like a boombox? You're like, that's not how matter
quantum
works.
mechanics,
Like,
Sarah, quantum mechanics. But
oh
the
my
fact
God.
is that like it turns into a car or a plane or something, and none of the colors are right. You're like, ooh, I'm a military vehicle, and you're like, yeah, but you're like red and blue. Like they don't have any of those. You're not gonna blend in.
At least like Bumblebee is like, yeah, I'm a Bumblebee. I look like a yellow Camaro or
But I
a
guess
little
it's like,
VW bug.
What was that? There was like that monster truck movie a couple years ago I didn't see, where like there was some sort of like monster that like was hiding in someone's truck. It's that sort of idea of like this is what we have to go to pretend these things can hide in modern society. And you're like, can we just have like, like when they did King Kong, like, oh, they got Skull Island and it's like hidden or buried, or just do that. Like if you're gonna do it.
I think King Kong is a good example, and isn't like Godzilla basically a dragon in modern times?
He shoots like nuclear energy. He's just a modern dragon. He was caused by us.
Of a building.
We bombed a bunch of islands, so he became
instead of wings, he's got the back spikes. Giant lizard.
Yeah, and he does come from the water as well, so it kind of makes it interesting that he's dual.
Kind of
But
like
the
the
real
beast
question
of Revelation
is, like,
coming out of the sea.
What is like the ideal dragon? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, what is your guys' like favorite?
Yeah, there's so many
favorite
different
story
types,
with a
obviously
dragon?
just preference. Like, I mean, I like a smart dragon. They can be assholes too. It's fine. Like speaking dragons are cool. Like the dragons in Ice and Fire aren't bad, but I like a dragon to have 4 legs. That's about it.
I like the dragons in Ice and Fire. The only thing I wish they were a little bit more intelligent, at least, or at least we understood that they were more intelligent than they seem to be. That would be my only parameters for like a cool dragon. Although I do like the whole like
mindless, don't they? Like,
yeah, and like the ways that they're able to control them are like very limited, and like this one person that they sort of listen to. I mean, like the wild dragons in the Dance with the Dragons, Princess and the Queen you can clearly see that there is a difference between like domesticated and not, but it's.
I mean, I feel like they are kind of
like
above beast but below human in A Song of Ice and Fire. That they sort of they have that imprinting thing going on with their masters. So there's some mystical voodoo going on.
Valerian dragons were a little smarter.
I was gonna say I wonder about Valerian. Going back to Valyria and all that, with the area trip and all that, I wonder about him because he's the only one that was born in Valyria.
I wonder a little bit if the eggs went stale. You know what I mean? Like if I guess we see other dragons in the Dance of Dragons, but like I'm thinking
like they just needed a sprucing up.
Over 35.
If they're just a little bit like dusty in the brain because they, you know what I mean? Like they were just in those eggs for so long.
You had to add some water.
I guess maybe like she hatched her
dragon.
Yeah. I mean, my experience with sea monkeys does not suggest that those dragons are going to be around very long. I'm just going to say that. Like, we had sea monkeys for about 2 days before they died. So, I'm not the mother of sea monkeys.
You're saying you committed sea monkey atrocities?
Many boffins died. Okay.
I'm the latter day Targaryen when it comes to sea monkeys. A summer hall disaster trying to.
You're like, oh, water is the champion of House Blood? I don't know.
Right?
So can you guys remember your first encounter with a dragon or your first experience of a dragon? First dragon memory?
Well, I was milking my cow on the
Blue-eyed
farm,
white
and
dragon. Yu-Gi-Oh! That was my first encounter with dragons. And I wanted that card so bad.
Oh, like the cartoon or whatever?
Yeah, I wanted that card so bad.
You're such a child.
My second was Dragon Tales,
Yu-Gi-Oh!
I'll have you know.
Dragon Tales. No, it's not. I'm not saying that is a bad thing. It's just, making me feel like, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's my first.
He's just
thing.
lashing out.
I am. Get off my lawn. We definitely had like Puff the Magic Dragon. I'm sure they were like kid things.
Oh yeah.
But the first thing I really remember, other than some sort of like fairy tale or rhyme or whatever, was The Hobbit, like the original Hobbit book. That was my favorite book as a kid. I read that book a bunch of times. And Smaug, and I was just like, oh yeah.
For me, I think it was the 80s cartoon Smaug, like the animated Hobbit. I am Smaug, and he was just like, But I posted a picture of him in the chat a little bit earlier because he is like much more feline than I remember. Like I remember him being like a not proper, like a sort of traditional like scaly, because he has that loose scale that they use, but he had like fur and cat ears and stuff. I don't know.
Did they show that on Rainy Days at your school? That's what we got for Rainy Days.
No, I had it on VHS and I used to watch it a lot.
Did you remember to rewind it after you finished watching it?
That's
what my parents always complained about when I watched my stuff.
You didn't rewind it.
We had a separate video rewinder. You just popped it in there, so you didn't have to worry about it.
God. My grandparents have those still in their house to this day.
Oh my gosh. I remember that. I do remember that. We never
Places
had
would charge you if you didn't. Because you couldn't have someone pop in that video and they'd be spoiled to the dragon if it was right. You know what I mean? Right at the dragon part. Obviously.
Oh yeah, that is true.
You'd have to like rewind it and look away so you didn't get any scenes.
Yeah, I think it was that and Falcor for me. I think were like the two. And then a little bit later, I read.
I didn't even realize Falcor was like a dragon until like I was like an adult. I'm like, that's a dragon.
Yeah. Well, they call him a dragon. Right?
A luck dragon.
I know he looks like a dog.
He's a luck dragon. He looks like a giant golden retriever. Yeah, I read Patricia C. Reedy's Dealing with Dragons. I don't know if anybody read that when they were little. It's such an amazing book for kids, but it's like a princess
familiar.
Hates being a princess, and so she like quits and goes and gets hired as a dragon's princess. And like all these knights try and come and rescue her, and she's like, "Fuck off! I volunteered for this job." And they were like, "No, you didn't. That's ridiculous." So it was like a very kind of like early, feminist, like you can be a dragon princess if you want to. I don't know. So I really dug that because she was just like the dragon was no nonsense, and like she was no nonsense, and like all the princes were idiots. Like that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I'd say my introduction to dragons is honestly probably just like the Arthurian legends, and then just being raised with a lot of like medieval like fiction and stuff like that. There's always a bunch of different dragon stories, whether it's like an Arthurian take where they're hunting down the dragon because it's a burden. Even some like YA books I read when I was younger. I want to say it was like the Dragonlings series or something like that, but like a whole society built on dragons being evil, but it turns out they're not, and different stuff like that.
I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember this, but like there was like a King Arthur cartoon in the 90s where it was like a football team got stuck at a time warp and went back and became like the Knights of the Round Table. Yep, I mean they had to like
yes, I do remember that.
And it had like one of the most like metal theme songs for a cartoon ever. But like they each this is just because of the dragons. The only point is like they would like transform into their armor and stuff like Power Rangers kind of. but like their shields and stuff all had like different beasts on them, and like they could call their beasts, and like Arthur was a dragon, and he'd call this like huge fucking dragon.
Why do I remember?
And I was like, yeah. But we'd all like, we'd play knights and shit out in my brothers and I, Ninja Turtles and knights and all that. We'd like pick who we wanted to be, and like we always had to fight over who got to be Arthur. He had the dragon.
He's the Red Ranger then.
Basically,
Arthur was the Red.
And this was before Power Rangers, I think, actually a couple years, but it's kind of the same kind of idea. It was like, well, we gotta do like King Arthur for kids, but like they're not gonna be interested unless they're football players. What?
That's hilarious.
They get. I think it's like they got on their team bus to go to the game, and they like accidentally got sucked into the pass, and you're like,
God,
what the hell?
It's like a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court meets like
basically
the toxic masculinity of the 90s.
It's they for some reason. I mean, like, because normally you would expect like, oh well, they've got to be kids, they've got to be teenagers, and then at least they were like adults, dealing with like murder and battling for the kingdom and all that, I guess. So, I don't know. At least that has it going for it.
I want to point attention to the fact that Zander apparently was alive during King Arthur's legend when that was happening. That's so cool. I didn't know we had like an actual fossil on the call with us. Yeah, thank you for that, Zander.
No, that's Adam.
But no, Zander said that he was his first introduction.
You can both fuck yourself.
Oh, come on now.
This knowledge is mine by rights. None of you youngins have it.
Just because the third interaction with dragons I had was the first Shrek movie doesn't mean anything, okay?
Was what?
Was the first Shrek movie.
Oh, Shrek. Okay.
I heard Shrek, and I was like,
have
what
we carded him
Star
yet?
Trek movie did I?
Have you carded me yet? I had a VHS as a kid. Come on. I'm not that old. I'm not that young anymore.
Yeah,
Okay.
people have VHS now. That doesn't mean anything.
Annoying hipsters do, but that's different.
Oh.
I don't remember like when I started enjoying dragons and dragon stories. Like I don't think it was part of my childhood. There was a show on PBS called Dragon Tales, but I don't actually remember liking that show. I can still sing the theme song though.
Yep.
Because it came on after something that I watched, and then I'd be like, oh yeah, I gotta change it. That's about all I remember about that show.
Yeah, they were like puppets.
Yeah, it was probably like on after like Wishbone or some shit, and you were like, oh yeah, like I've got 3 channels, but I'm sure there's something better.
It was not puppets. It was animation. I'll have you know. It was very wholesome and good.
Come along, take my hand. Let's all go to Dragonland.
Oh my god, yes!
Did it involve some sort of drug, hallucinogen, or mushroom?
No, that was Wishbone.
So I distinctly remember even like into my teens and stuff being like, there are people that are like into dragons, like you go to like the wizard shop, the smoke shop, and they got the crazy dragon statues, and you're like, fucking weirdos. And then you're like, oh no, I mean like, but you're always thinking like, oh, dragons are cool, but like I'm not really that into dragons. You're like, oh no, actually I do kind of like dragons. I just don't have like statues.
Yeah, it's like in your mid-teens, excuse me, you realize that people like dragons in different cliques than you. Cliques? That's an odd way of pronouncing that. And then their way of liking it's not cool in your opinion. But then also like your dragons. And it's like, yeah, just let people have their dragons.
It's like the Star Wars fans looking at the Star Trek fans. Nerds.
No, that's unequivocally true, okay? I'm sorry. I have aunts that are Trekkies, okay? They're very
And you're like,
people.
I've watched like every Star Trek show ever, but I'm like, I'm not Trekkie. Leave me alone, bro.
Given the choice between the two, I think I would be. I think if I had to pick a side, it would be Star Trek instead of Star Wars. I know.
That is.
But you don't have to choose, so it's okay. Say no more.
Many.
I mean, can I choose though? Because
there's no need to choose. I will just say one of them has dragons. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, crate dragons. They're
Literally.
Chad.
And those like
Puff the Magic
space
Dragon.
thingies.
That was a song from my childhood.
Yes.
Lives
So
in
I was
he-
today years old when I realized that talking about
The land of
ceiling wax
Hanali.
in that song, they did not mean wax for the ceiling. Like I literally just realized that they meant like to seal a letter, like not wax.
Wait, a
for-
letter?
When you're
For some
hollow,
reason
I had, like, in
sometimes
mind,
you
like,
wax the
caulking.
ceiling.
They were
I
like
mean,
something
you know.
like something strings and sealing wax, and I was like, well, that's fucking weird. But like I was literally today years old when I realized they
Some people wax their ceilings. They get a little hairy.
It prevents leakage.
I mean,
It's good insulation.
I was like, maybe dragons do? Like, I don't
When
know.
you're-
I don't know how I
Once you get a little older, insulation starts growing, and you've got to wax the ceiling.
I mean, I mean, I thought it was weird. Like, I wasn't okay with it, but like, no, I literally just realized that they.
No, I did
That's
used to hear it as SEILING as well, Sarah.
That's amazing. Thank you for that, Sarah.
And then I thought I was smart by realizing that they were apparently sealing up the bathtub or something.
Oh my god. You were on the right track, but you were still wrong.
Like caulk? Like they collected caulk?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
You're cocking the.
I mean, you are. You're closer than I was. Like, I will give you that. That's fair dues. But yeah. Wow. All right. That was like a.
Now I'm just thinking of using like sealing caulk as like a what's it called? Sealant for letters.
Oh my god. Just put a big blob of caulk on there. Like, no, we
Listen,
are.
overkill, but
I feel like
I'm
we're
not judging.
perhaps a little bit off topic here. But,
Without your
yeah, but
amazing
that
organizational
song is about
skills.
drugs, actually.
Hey,
I mean,
kid, you want
I
some of
remember
this
this-
sealing wax?
like early in the 90s,
Swat the
like an
ceiling.
animated movie with this awful dragon that had two heads, and it was like the comic relief in it. I think the movie was maybe called Sword in the Stone or something. Like it had a female lead and a blind guy with a stick. Yeah, I definitely hated that dragon as a kid. I do
I know
remember
you're
that.
talking about it had two heads and it was kind of like man-sized and walked around, right?
Was it Pete's dragon?
Yeah, it was like a goofy comic relief character.
Yeah. I remember. I don't know if I ever like saw the full thing, but I do remember being like, what the hell is that?
Was it purple?
Adam knows this. The only good
It
small
was
dragon
purple,
is
yes.
Lockheed.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
So did
So
we
if
cover
anyone
everyone's
would like
kind
to
of
air
first
their
dragon
hate for
memories?
some sort of dragon depictions or talk about dragons that they love we sort of talked about A Song of Ice and Fire a little bit, and Lord of the Rings, I guess, too.
I mean, like, what is y'all's favorite A Song of Ice and Fire dragon? To be fair, we kind of skimmed Song of Ice and Fire dragons.
I feel like Sheep Stealer is like my spirit animal.
You're just hungry. Let me get some sheepies. That's great. I like that one.
Yeah, I can't think of any
that's
any
Dragontail.
dragon depictions that I really
Peter,
hate. I mean,
That's from Dragon Tales. I hated that dragon too. Depictions of dragons I hated.
I mean, there are people that like do that. I guess there's media that's like, the dragons aren't done well, they look bad, or like they just are kind of lame, but like they're usually based off of kind of like established like dragon archetypes, which are okay, I guess. I'm just trying to think of something like someone did with a dragon that I was like, oh, like screw that.
Aragon the movie, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, like in Aragon, I don't know if anyone's read those books.
Yeah.
I thought that they were promising,
Um,
and he, and especially for what was he, 15, 16 when he started writing those.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
major
Yes,
props.
but
for
he was
that.
an adult by the time they were actually getting really published, and I think that we don't have to give him the child's benefit of the doubt.
Well, no, I know,
Both
but
the
like
book
it's
and
my
the-
point is that like props for like the books and all that, getting it going. But then like by the time you get to the last one, he's like probably 25 or 30 or whatever. Like he's definitely an adult, and to me it all just sort of fell apart. Like the rules he created, and he just Like clearly it was like, oh, his like maybe he needs a little more time with the writing thing.
I honestly I honestly don't remember much about those books because same, I was really into it for a while when I was a teenager, and then I realized how bad they were.
They got bad. It's basically Star Wars dragons.
Yeah,
and
it's
it doesn't finish strong. Like I
I
think
I didn't even
what is
finish
it?
actually. I don't think I've
Oh,
read
it
it
ends
that
up
well.
where he's like his, it's when you create a rule in a world and then it doesn't really work narratively anymore, but you stick with it. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
like I think his rule, was like if you know the name of something, then you own it basically, which is like kind of a shitty rule anyway. And then
I mean,
he like
it's
learns
used a
like the
lot.
name
It's
of the
not-
universe and becomes God or something, and you're like,
But I
Ontological
don't remember
conclusion.
the dragon
Yeah.
being specifically very bad or anything. I mean, the movie was terrible, like really, really terrible. But the dragons
they thought that movie was like going to be a whole like huge series, and it just
it's terrible. It's just
Yeah,
awful.
doesn't
But the
Aragorn have
dragons
those
so
very sort of
bad.
noble dragons that are like have a noble voice, like, "Oh, I am Vermithrax, Lord of the Skies. How do you do?"
yeah, and like I didn't even mind the fact that like these dragons sort of they create a bond with the human and they can talk to each other, and like it's like that's kind of a cool thing. Like the whole setup there with the dragons themselves was fine, like just like the books and stuff weren't. So like that's what I'm saying. It's like I can think of stories with dragons that are terrible, but like I'm trying to think of like any dragons where I was like, oh my gosh, that's the worst thing, and like people don't usually take a ton of big chances with dragons. When they do, it's usually something that works out pretty well because we're just willing to accept like, oh, this dragon was a human once, or this dragon has this kind of magic, or whatever it is. It seems we're cool with it.
I didn't love the dragon from Shrek. She bothered me.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, she was also like kind of part of that in like early 2000s, like, what are women?
Yeah, right. What is eyelashes?
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess because but even there, it's like because it's Shrek and it's supposed to just be real stupid. You're like, oh, whatever. I mean, like her and Donkey having kids. I don't even want to.
I would recommend checking out.
I'm sure that was really far down.
Are those the furry dragons we talked about earlier?
Probably.
They are in fact donkey dragons.
I would if
Yeah,
anyone
that's
likes
one I
musical
hate.
theater, I would check out the dragon song from the musical adaptation of Shrek because it's pretty cool. Although I thought that the one that they rejected, they had some like trial songs, and I thought one of them was better than the one that they came up with.
They did a musical?
Yes, they did. They did.
Shrek the musical is amazing. It's just an amazing sentence to tell someone when like the first Shrek came out. Like,
they have
there's gonna be a Shrek musical.
legit Broadway act. Sutton Foster and Brian. Oh God, I'm blanking on his name, but really like winning actors up there as Fiona and Shrek. I don't know what to tell you. It's a thing.
Hey, everybody needs a paycheck, okay?
I don't like it when dragons are portrayed as like just mindless antagonists. I think it's disrespectful.
Disrespectful.
It is.
Like you're cool with them
they're
being
basically like more
maniacally
dangerous
choosing to be
snakes, aren't
evil, right?
Yeah, well then at least they have agency.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because then it's sort of like
want
making the
them to
lion
have
the
some level
villain of your
of
story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I also don't
mind
like
evil
stories where like
dragons.
the villain is like a beast that can't control. Like I don't like like bear baiting or whatever, and it's just like this animal's just trying to survive, and like I don't.
Oh, we're talking about like like werewolves or something almost. Where it's like
Yeah, but
someone
I don't mind that kind of horror genre of like Jaws or Deep Blue Sea or anything
That movie Anaconda.
Anaconda,
Oh,
like
that's great.
God.
a lot of the like horror animal movies are pretty bad. But then you get things like, people already are pretty afraid of sharks to begin with, and then they see Jaws and they're just like, kill all the sharks, and I don't know if that really has done anything too negative necessarily, but like maybe people don't care as much when they see shark fin soup and all these dead sharks, because they're like, oh yeah, sharks are a pest, which isn't true. So
I will say, if anyone wants a recommendation for a new, it came out I think the beginning of 2020, feminist queer fantasy novel in which dragons feature heavily, The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon is really good, and it is huge. It is huge. It was like I could almost stand up my phone by the binding, and it was almost taller than my phone. But it's very, very, very good and very well written.
I
about the Priory of the Orange Tree. What's the story in that?
So it's kind of Game of Thrones like, and it follows like a bunch of different characters. But there's like I guess the main thread is there's I don't remember if she's a spy or an envoy or whatever, from this magical place called the Priory of the Orange Tree, who has gone to kind of be a part of the arranging of the marriage of a queen who's part of this line where they're all queens, they have to have a baby, it's always a girl, so this Queen Sabrin is about to get married, and like it's about like choosing her particular mate, and then there's a different part of it, a girl from another culture who like kind of has a mysterious origin, and she's kind of she's training to be part of the like a dragon rider basically, and like they're super ancient dragons, and they like select their riders, and that's kind of what she's going for. Meanwhile,
only the girls get to ride dragons in this story?
No, they're
oh,
also
that's good to hear.
dragon rider, and two of the perspectives are guys, so you're not totally out of it. But also the kind of the dragon mythology is very divided between like they have like fire dragons who are like worms and bad and like the central antagonists, and then the good dragons from this other culture who are more water based. Again, I read it like a year and a half ago, but I did really enjoy it, and I found it very compelling and beautifully written, and would definitely recommend. I think a lot of people in VOC would like it.
See, I'm a fan of like the more magical the dragon gets, the better. So I'm like fire dragons and ice dragons and lightning dragons, water dragons. Like, I kind of like that. I mean, like the scientific, like, well, he's got a sack with some fuel and then he just creates the fire. Like, I mean, like that, like Rain of Fire or whatever, like that sort of works. But I want them to be like these creatures shrouded in the mist. Like, and I think I agree with you, Michal.
Sort of
like, I don't like when the dragons are just these like evil, like they have no agenda, they have no one controlling them. Like if they're mindless, and they're doing bad things, it should be because the evil empire is has tamed them or something. It shouldn't be just because like they just want to kill everything in sight, because that wouldn't last very long.
Inherently evil, but maybe enthralled to some like
power. Right, because like I think
the hounds of Morgoth in the Silmarillion, kind of like he's bred them to be this like attack dog basically.
I think it's boring when they're just like destroy, because if that's their nature, I mean it is like the whole the Rain of Fire thing, where it's like, oh yeah, they populate and they just destroy the entire Earth, and then they hibernate until the Earth grows back.
But isn't that sort of what they're built for? Like they're
and
like they have all these natural weapons and they're very powerful and they're kind of like destruction embodied, or kind of like.
Right, but I mean most animals, if they're a stupid animal, right? Like most animals don't just like kill everything in sight. Like they kill for defense and they kill for food. So it wouldn't make sense that like a lion is just going to just keep going until he kills everyone he sees. Like that, like just doesn't happen.
I think that does happen. Like if wolves get like their free pick out of like a herd of sheep, they will kill all of them just for fun. Like they will glut themselves as full as they can, but they will
Right,
just
but they
kill-
don't like go to the next herd and the next herd and one village over. Like, you know, that's my point. Is like
I've tried to do that. I posted
don't
a
stop.
philosophical quote about how humans are the only animals that are deliberately cruel and was smacked down considerably by several people.
Oh, that's not true. Dolphin sex slaves.
Uh,
And penguin necrophiliacs.
Oh yeah.
Lions
yes,
are just
I did
quitters.
listen to the first
That's what
creature cast.
Yeah, I mean there are definitely animals that like can enjoy killing or be very aggressive, but my point is like they have limits. So like with a dragon, it's something that's like more powerful than anything else and can level whole cities. Like, you know, if it has that same drive to like, I'm just going to destroy everything. Like, well, that's just it. Like, there's no story to that, in my opinion. Like, it's just boring.
I think it depends on the context of the world. Like, I think if you're gonna do like the mindless dragons thing, it can work. It's just it has to like be the rest of the world has to be interesting too. It can't just be like mindless dragons, I
Right?
guess.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because
they
like
have
a
to
Song of
have
Ice and Fire
motivation
dragons
for
are
doing
not.
bad things or good things.
A Song of Ice and Fire dragons are not very intelligent, again, but we like them for what they are, and the story for what it is.
Yeah, but without a human, they're not just like going to burn every city in sight. You know.
Well, there are dragons like Cannibal, who are like assholes, but
Well,
dragons.
But it's only if people like bother them, right? I mean, you know.
From what I remember, he would actually go like and eat the other like baby dragons, like whelps.
Yeah, but he's not attacking like human settlements or anything. Like they aren't like actively seeking out like
Yeah.
things to
Even like
destroy just for funsies. Like
even what is Alisane's dragon? She was the last. Her and Morning were the last two. Was it Silverwing? I think.
yeah,
She ends up at Red Lake and just like chills there after the war and doesn't like want anybody to bother her, from what I remember. But of course, people go and bother her.
Well, you know.
Yeah, I guess
What's
maybe it
stress?
depends a little bit on like what the dragon, its role is in the story. Like in those like Saint George and the Dragon, I guess the dragon is kind of a personification of evil and danger, and kind of like it's kind of almost like the man versus nature plot in a way. Like you going out to conquer nature and like subdue it or make sure it doesn't threaten you. But if the role is something
Right.
else, then it can.
Is that usually
be
where like
different.
the hero has to either get something the dragon is guarding, or maybe like, well, I need a dragon claw to, you know, make, you know, a potion or something. Like usually the hero seeks out the dragon to slay, right? There's a lot of that where, you know, dragons are probably minding their own business and they're like, the brave knight's gonna go slay this dragon, you know, who killed a couple sheep.
It's like
yeah, I mean it does seem like they're
Opera.
provoked a lot of the time. Like again, I'm thinking of Beowulf because that's my job. But you know, that dragon chilled for 300 years and like didn't bother anybody. And some asshole went in and took his cup, and he was like real mad about it.
He's like,
and then,
oh no.
You know what I mean? Like, oh
I'll
hell
drink
no,
out
you
of
don't
that.
touch my cup. Yeah, you know what I mean. But like, like okay, I have to. But there's a line in there where he sees the footprints and he's like snuffling around looking for tracks of people, and he knows that somebody was there. And then he goes back in to find his cup, and that's when he realizes it's missing. So like, he just really liked that cup, you guys. Like it was his special cup, and this dinghole stole it for reasons we don't know because the manuscript is fucked up. And like
He was like,
Yes,
shit,
I'm sure there was a very
people coming into
reasonable
my house I can deal with. Okay, I can clean up, but stealing my cup.
He's like, oh, footprints.
Don't get it.
Oh, a cup, you know? And it's like, but there's this moment where like you see it kind of click into place, even in this very abstract, you know, creaturely representation in this text. And it's, I mean, he, you know, otherwise, like, you know, but for human assholery, you know, he wouldn't have burned down anything. And he's excited to do it when he has a reason to, but it's not unprovoked, I guess.
Even Smaug is an asshole. He's got his hoard. And I mean, like I said, like he's a character to him in and of himself, which is great, and it works. But even he's like, I don't really care to like burn the lake town. And oh, like someone like messed up my slumber. I guess I'll burn the lake town. Like,
yeah. But it's like, I mean, yeah, like you don't wake a sleeping dragon.
I
There
can't
are
remember. I can't believe I'm just remembering this now, but I did actually write my paper on Beowulf, my final paper.
Yeah.
I think when I was a freshman, about like personification of the dragon in Beowulf. Now that I'm
I
remembering.
mean, he gives like it's a surprisingly empathetic.
Could be a she.
I guess so. I don't know that it.
So there's Grendel and Grendel's
She
mother
yelled at
and
the
a
person
dragon.
who actually studies this professionally.
Is there 3 different monsters in Beowulf?
Yeah. Well, traditionally.
And which one of them is
there are
Angelina
3
Jolie?
of them, right? None of them is Angelina Jolie. And she's not
a Beowulf cast.
She's not the dragon.
I never
mother,
watched that stupid CG Beowulf.
Beowulf is not his father, and
Yeah, no, I was not
but,
interested
what if
when I
he
saw
was?
that.
made me so angry. But anyway, it could be a she. I don't know. I honestly don't know about the gendering of dragon in Anglo-Saxon. I will admit that. But whether there is a pronoun that identifies it as one or the other, I cannot say.
That's probably a dude.
I do know that that they are described in terms that are parallel to Beowulf in many respects. So there's a sense of association that is uncomfortable at times between the dragon and Beowulf that Beowulf then goes and.
So what about like we discussed a little bit sort of like the sea dragon type of thing, which is I mean you've got the krakens and all different sea monsters and whatnot, but like is the dragon, especially when it comes to like the ocean, because it doesn't seem to be ever associated with like lakes or rivers a ton, but is it mostly just like bad weather and like waves and people looking to be like, oh, there must be a dragon stirring up the sea because it's like makes it easier to deal with than just like I might die out here on the sea?
I'm not sure. I like the whole sea dragon thing. It's so rare to see it though.
Yeah, I feel like you get like the giant octopus or something more, especially if it's like going to attack a ship, because then you get all the tentacles and whatnot. Like the sea dragon type of thing is not as prevalent.
When it should be because it's cool. I like it a lot actually. It's one of my favorite depictions of dragons, like the idea of like a sea serpent. And
I mean, I'm
like
happy to have less scary things underneath the water personally. So.
Oh, samesies.
Like, look, I grew up in the
just
ocean,
assume
and I was always
everything's
like,
fine.
where are the sharks?
Do you guys have phassalophobia? Fear of things submerged in water?
Pretty much.
Yes. Adam, were you the one who was saying that you convinced yourself there were sharks in the pool?
Well, no, I mean, I saw James Bond as a kid, where like he opens the door, like he goes swimming and suddenly he opens the door and like there's a shark. And as an adult, you're like, well, that's chlorine and that ain't gonna work. And like it's all for the movie or whatever. It's a cool villain thing. But like I would like go into pools and I would just like check for doors just to be safe. Like,
oh my god,
I
would get to the deep
imagine
end.
Like kid Adam like circling the pool,
yeah,
knocking on the
doors.
Thing,
it's good.
Like no door. No one. Okay, I can enjoy the 30 minutes I have left.
That's right. No, it's just a quick perimeter check, man. You just got to know your surroundings, know where the exits are. That's all. I mean,
I would psych myself out so hard. Like I would get to the deep end and I'm like, but what if, and then I would just like panic and so
it's like that stupid kid thing where like it's not real, but you're just like, but like I saw it on TV and like someone can, if I'm in the wrong pool one day and they have a shark door, I'm gonna be real pissed.
My cousins liked to terrify me as a child. So the thing whenever we went to the beach was to like take me out past the the little beacons. I forget what they're called. Yeah. Just keep going. Till like, you can barely see the beach. You can't even see people on the beach. Just terrify the child completely.
It's like a terrible that is not okay.
Was this the ocean?
Yes.
Yeah, people don't usually go out that far as kids.
That is not acceptable behavior.
It's like
Walk
Like,
away
people barely
ashamed.
go anywhere.
My cousins were a little bit assholes, but they were also like teenagers. Yeah, it is what it is.
You're like, look, I didn't die, okay? So,
Yeah.
clearly.
Yeah. It doesn't help that I was the youngest grandchild up until like, let's see, 7 years after I was born. I was the youngest kid up until then. So I was the baby of all the cousins. It
Oh
didn't
man, my
help.
son is so screwed. He's the youngest of all the cousins, and he's the only boy. Like, he's gonna get so much shit. From
No.
Yeah,
Poor little dude.
I know. He's gonna be in for it, I'm sure, when they get older. But he's all right. He'll be fine, probably.
So what about? I mean, there are fiction series, and especially I've noticed this in video games, especially when they differentiate between like dragons and wyverns and worms, and like they kind of give them their own, like as if like they have different personalities, different entries. I mean, I think in The Witcher you have dragons, and like they're just like a whole other level. They're intelligent. They're like The Witcher, kind of leaves them alone for the most part.
And they can
Then
take
you've got
on
like
humanoid
wyverns
forms as well,
and
I think.
worms and shit. And he's like, those are pests.
Yeah, I feel like in a lot of fantasy stories like this, the differentiation between wyvern and dragon, but they usually say that wyverns are like cousins of dragons, or sort of like related in some way, but they're usually more bestial and like mindless, I
Lesser in
suppose.
some way. Yeah.
But I mean, like, like in some stories, like the main dragon type, creature is, a wyvern or a worm, or like, physically. So, it all kind of, I mean, especially because these are not like real things, so the rules don't apply across the board, which makes it a little harder,
yeah.
I guess.
I've got to say, actually thinking back on it, my favorite depiction of dragons is Avatar: The Last Airbender. Those were my favorite dragons, absolutely, bar none. They're so cool.
Oh, those were great. Yeah. Those
Really
were
good.
all
Like, don't get a lot of attention though.
long-bodied Chinese
Yeah.
dragons, but they were gone. I mean, they were mostly in flashbacks.
Oh, the long-bodied Chinese dragon. Sounds like an actual name for a species.
Yeah,
One thing I love is when
Draconis
writers
chinesicus, I don't know.
like when writers invent breeds of dragons. That's like just something I always enjoy.
When
And
they
that's
what?
obviously in Harry Potter and in
Oh yeah, I love them in Harry Potter.
The
All the
Harry
different
Potter,
breeds.
breeds were amazing. They're all great. Swedish short snout, Chinese. What was it?
I mean, again,
Chinese fireball.
it's like dragons are this magical thing. So like, I mean, sort of what we got with Game of Thrones in the show is like, even though we got like the 3 dragons, you're like, where's the gold? Where's the green? Like, I want variety. I want like, dragons. Like I said, they can breathe fire or lightning or whatever. But I also want like a purple dragon and a red dragon. I want like distinction and color and majesty, because it's this, it's, I don't know, it's magical, and it can be whatever it wants. So why do we have to kind of make it plain?
well, Rowling also has a common Welsh green, so I think she's more of the naturalistic school.
Yes.
But she also does the Harry Potter.
The
also
Dragon Kennel Club.
Yeah, but they are more bestial, I guess, in Harry Potter.
But they are pretty cool. I mean, like the ones she comes up with. I mean, I think there's like at least half a dozen that get mentioned in the books, and like she gives them very, distinctive characteristics. So.
Mm-hmm. Don't put your hand in front of the mouth of a baby Norwegian Ridgeback.
It does kind of surprise me that they weren't able to like tame.
Well,
them.
it is Ron who gets bitten, so there you go.
Yeah, it's Ron. So why do you think she went that route with the dragons, instead of saying, oh, they're magical, or even that like the people in the magical world of Harry Potter somehow domesticated them, like they're still kind of wild and crazy, but they also managed to keep them hidden? Seems a little weird.
I mean, I think in Harry Potter, a lot of the approach to magic is, or magical creatures, is kind of practical. It's like, elves are house elves, and goblins have like their own like secret or
goblins
divided
love money.
communities. Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
a whole other discussion.
Yep.
But like,
It feels more folkloric than mythological. Like, I mean, it's just sort of, the everyday magic.
Yeah,
Like
it just
that,
it feels like there are certain things though that they haven't tamed in that world, and the dragons being like chief among them, that would cause a lot of work for them having to go around and like Men in Black everybody, like, you didn't see this, you didn't see, just
I think
seems
the
like a lot of work.
explanation is that the people who come across them don't survive, and they are good at staying hidden in mountains and stuff.
Like, do they have like records? Only 4 million Muggles were killed by dragons last year. It's pretty good.
Well, that's what she says about. That's what the books say about giants, right? Like, what do you mean no Muggles find them? It's like they do. Remember all those ones that die in avalanches?
Yeah, and rock slides and
Yeah, I don't know. I do think it's interesting that they aren't dragons. Really aren't a big. I mean, they pop up, but they aren't like a big mythological thing in Harry Potter, which is interesting.
Yeah,
to
I
me.
mean, like the phoenix and even the owls are kind of somewhat more magical than the dragons are.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of feel like in Harry Potter, the creatures aren't really like foundational aspects of the world in a sense, like they're not like the big building blocks of the world in a way, I guess.
Yeah.
Not unless you need one like the basilisk or whatever. And I think honestly it was mostly utility. Like, she chose small animals to be part of the world because they can be in the dorm room, they can be in your luggage. I mean, I think that's mostly what she went for.
I always thought the dragon that they escape on in Deathly Hallows was a little bit of a missed opportunity, to be honest, but oh well.
Yeah, that's the one that's sort of been enslaved and mistreated a lot.
Yeah.
How do you feel like it's a missed opportunity? What opportunity did they miss?
More that like because I like dragons, I thought there would be more of a personality involved in that dragon, but like the dragon doesn't really even notice Harry, Ron, and Hermione. They just kind of free it and like hop on its back and happen to like fly off and dive off, and it is just like a cool vamonos, there isn't like a relationship there.
It's a little too plot convenient, yeah.
Yeah, it's not even that it's plot convenient. It's more that I want personification in my dragons, and there isn't really much of that in that. Like,
Yeah, they do
even like
delve a little
semblance
bit
of like,
into
thank you for rescuing me, kind of,
Yeah,
something.
like there's no communication. They're just like,
he's just like, I'm out. And they're like, get on quickly.
Yeah, I mean, Rowling does spend quite a bit of time to sort of like, we spend a lot of time with giants, with Hagrid's brother, so there is precedent for that sort of like expanding on the creatures like that, and them having personality, and with the big spider as well.
Mm-hmm.
Being
Rowling
able to
just
speak
hates dragons, confirmed. Yeah, I mean, it's for such magical creatures. Like, is there even any, like, other than like, I guess they use it in some potions and stuff. Like, none of the houses do dragons. Like, nothing really seems connected to dragons in that world.
The school motto is Draco dormans nequam titilandus, which is never tickle a sleeping dragon.
Oh yeah, no, I do remember that. I don't even remember what book that appears in. We've been reading them. But I remember
I'm not sure it's actually ever in the book
question or
proper. I
something.
think it's just in like on the crest that like is printed in the beginning of the book. I think it might be.
I've seen that, and I never really. I was like, is it some kind of Latin? And then it was like some trivia thing, and I was like, oh, is that what that is? I guess I must have missed it in the book somewhere. Like,
It's also like a phrase, like don't wake the sleeping dragon, don't mess with the sleeping dragon.
Yeah, it's a twist on.
You wouldn't want to wake the dragon. Oh, all right, there. You
Oh.
got a real badass over here.
But I guess that would
I
imply
don't
that you
know.
can tickle a dragon that's awake.
That doesn't seem like a good idea either.
It doesn't,
Listen,
but
if
like
you have a good relationship with the dragon, tickling can be fine.
I don't know. We have to ask Charlie Weasley.
No, Adam would know. He's done much research into relationships with dragons, with his search into the furry dragons.
Guys, this scroll is infinite. On that note, what else do we got, Peter?
Okay, one other thing I thought we might discuss is like dragons as sort of emblems of the fantasy genre in a way that it's like when you think fantasy, you might immediately think dragons, or like people who don't like fantasy, they might say like, oh, this has dragons in it and shit. Like, I'm not gonna read that. It's kind of like, in a way, it's kind of like fairy tales. Like, oh, it's got fairies and dragons and shit like that in it. So that it's kind of.
That's like the cheap dragon cameo, right? Like if you're watching a TV show, or let's say even like especially like a sci-fi show like a Star Trek or something, they show up somewhere and then like there's a dragon, that lets you know there's something weird and mystical going on. Or like there's definitely been a lot of those where like you're in a normal world and then dragon for no reason, just to let you know that this world's different, and then like it's never brought up again. You put dragon on your cover, everyone knows what genre you're in. Except, what if it was a book about VR video games? I don't know. You wouldn't put the dragon on the cover, right?
They are very sort of like the emblem of fantasy in a way.
Yeah, I would agree that even to a degree like sci-fi gets mixed with that, where it is like we were talking about like Krayt dragons, or like I've seen them depicted in sci-fi too. It seems to be both genres, obviously fantasy more so, but like both genres.
If you're using it as emblematic to like show that you're in sci-fi, it's always it's very alien looking dragon. Oftentimes it's like, well, there's no wings, or like the head is very alien looking, doesn't have the standard.
Yeah, they go into that
dragon
like,
feature,
realistic dragon like you talked about earlier, right? I'm like, oh, it's got the glands in the neck and it secretes this sort of like chemical that sets fire.
Something you go, oh no, that's just an alien creature from another planet that maybe we would say is like our mythical dragons. You wouldn't go, that's the dragon of the myth. Like it's usually very distinctive.
I wonder if the genre thing is because dragons are like the most impossible creature.
Yeah.
Like I mean aerodynamically.
I can make a unicorn in an afternoon. Just saying.
No, but I mean, yeah, like aerodynamically and sort of like their capabilities and their longevity, and they're like they have all of these, their size and their composition and their like just everything about them.
And we've never found anything like it.
Yeah, they're
even
impossible
dinosaurs just don't really compare.
I don't know. I still think the pterosaur is pretty fucking close, but the pterosaur didn't breathe fire. You know what I mean? Like there's just like they're sort of nth degree impossible, whereas every other creature you're like it's kind of like a lion but with wings, or like I don't know. It just seems like on every metric
saying, like, they're like they are impossible to exist. Like. Mm-hmm. I guess sometimes they do like try to make them more like probable or realistic in a way, like they try to fiddle with the wings to body ratio or stuff like that, but usually the result isn't very good and it just looks like a pterodactyl or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just seems like just on any number of metrics it's like more impossible than anything. So I don't know. I mean, that just strikes me as like one reason that it might be emblematic in that way of things that are like super impossible, not just like kind of impossible. Like,
yeah, that you have to believe in impossible things to get into this story because it has those fantasy elements in it. So you have to believe in dragons and fairies to have a good time here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, cool. We've been going for a while now. So does anyone else have anything to say on dragons or something we didn't touch on yet?
I just wanted to give a shout out to Maleficent in Sleeping Beauty, because I really think that for me was one of the like formative, just like with the green fire and
she scared the crap out of me.
Me too. Yeah. I would insist on watching that movie like over and over again, and whenever that happened, I'm like, why did I do this? But like, I don't know. For me, I think if I had to point to like a quintessential like visual of a dragon, it would be that like green fire in the bramble patch, like I don't know, she's just so
oh yeah, that one's Angelina Jolie, right?
No, I will fight you.
Yeah, but I do feel like that's a very cool dragon as well, with the black scales and the burning green eyes and the green fire.
Definitely Angelina Jolie. Yeah, I don't even remember that movie. I don't know if I've ever watched it the full way through. I'm sure, like, we, go over to friends' houses and they put on Disney movies. I'm sure I probably did. I've never watched it as an adult, but I do remember all the dragon stuff. So that thing was scary.
Yeah. Yeah, like the jaw snapping and
I was thinking about that earlier. It's like her thing is like she transforms with magic, but like it's like pretty solid magic.
Yeah.
She's like hardcore a dragon.
Yeah.
So do you think that that's her true form, that she's a dragon who's pretending
I
to
was
be
just gonna say that. I was just gonna say that. Yeah, I feel like.
Isn't she a fairy that has wings and horns? Like Angelina Jolie.
What?
But is that canon? What is the Maleficent canon that we are adhering to here?
Yeah, look, if you don't know the material, okay, we can't talk about Maleficent, okay? Actually, didn't they make a sequel to that movie?
Yes, they did.
What even happened with that? I don't know. I didn't see it.
I mean, I don't know that we can really talk about knowing the material, since we all started this podcast being like, I don't really know, but I feel like Asian dragons and maybe South America and
like, what's a dragon? Well, I mean, it's like a dragon is like just like what a dragon is, and the mythology is, it's one of those sort of things. It's like you grab it and it feels like it just sort of like slips out of your hands as you're grabbing it, because it's just different all over, and we sort of refer to it the same way.
No, like some sort of scaly thing with a tail that slips out of your hand. That's a good metaphor.
I will say I have been fact checking along the way, and we've been okay. Like, we're not, but like the Quetzalcoatl thing was fine, and just want to make sure we weren't.
We are happy to be educated.
Blanket.
Make sure we didn't fly too close to the sun. Like Quetzalcoatl.
Right.
Lose our wings.
Yeah.
Wait,
he's melted right now. No.
The wax of the ceiling was melting.
Oh no! Full circle.
Okay, well, if nobody else has anything more to say on dragons, I think we can start wrapping up.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining me for this episode of Creature Chat on dragons. This has been fun, and hopefully we'll be moving on in the future with some other imaginary creatures. Do any of my co-hosts here have any particular creature they would like to chat about in the future?
Cats?
I was thinking of cats too, actually.
Ew.
And I'm allergic to them. Yeah.
We'll just schedule a conflicting
I'm
dog cast
allergic.
on the same day.
Oh my gosh, dogs and cats you could probably go into for a long time, and I'm sure there are whole podcasts dedicated to them.
But
like,
they're not magical enough. They're just everyday normal creatures that live in the world. I want magical things.
Like, I'd rather talk about
cats are magical
and shit.
Oh my god.
Magically annoying, yeah.
Magically annoying.
Excuse me. Were cats not worshipped in ancient Egypt?
And they haven't forgotten.
There was a lot of things that were worshipped in ancient Egypt. It's like, being. I mean,
because they didn't want to
The
eat.
Bass was like a major goddess.
Yeah, you don't see jackals being all up their own butts.
Well, you don't see
Somewhat
jackals self-domesticating so that they could get us to feed them.
Fair enough.
Michal has
Damon
definitely
us.
read Chronicles.
Read the what?
Yeah, I think it might.
But I think
The
maybe
King
we could cover like we could do one on like magical creatures. You could pick like maybe even like half a dozen of kind of like minor, like minotaurs and satyrs
kind of.
and that sort of like
You
I feel
might want to
we
go
could
by
do a
environment.
unicorn
So
or
like
vampires,
like
werewolves.
forests.
Oh, that's fun.
maybe like
Forests or
mystical
oceans.
forest
Good
creatures.
idea.
That'd be good.
Oh yeah,
Like
by
werewolves and vampires, I think are like a big like, and then there's like the human element. So like creature, human, I don't know, but that's a big topic.
Peter, it might be
Sorry,
interesting to
Nicole,
have
what
like a phobia cast.
that
Like
would be
animals that
Well,
we're scared of.
that's gonna take a while, Sarah.
Oh, yeah. Animals you're afraid
I'm
of.
scared of foam.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying like I'm scared of, I can't name anything that's not an animal, but like like not shark, you know what I mean? I'm talking about like, you know, animals that we're scared of, like spiders or
Snakes.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
Shark.
I would love to have like an
Dean and
irrational
Marie
fear
have been
cast.
vocal about their fear of spiders, at least.
An irrational
Yeah,
fear
like-
cast would be amazing.
Like something that you're just like, I hate it, I don't like it, I like I said, like I don't like the foam stuff, I don't like touching jewelry, I got weird stuff like that. But like, is there an animal that you're like, I'm afraid of bunnies? You know,
I'm
like,
afraid of the inflatable mans, like the
the
wacky
tube-man guys.
arm waving. Yeah.
Really?
Like in front of
Yeah.
dealerships. No, I'm just.
I mean,
joking.
they do move very unpredictably, which I think is at the root of a lot of phobias. Like we kind of talked about that in the last creature cat, where like you just don't, if you don't understand how something is moving or what, I think that's why cockroaches freak me out so bad, because like they could be on my face at any moment. Like, yeah.
Yeah, but they aren't. They're never on your face, but they could be.
But they
are.
I know people who have woken up with cockroaches.
Well, Michal, you live in New York.
Oh.
That's amazing. You live in New York.
I mean,
really
no. Now, if she lived in New Jersey, she would have said everyone I know has woken up with cockroaches at one point. But,
Damn, you just saved everybody.
Like slithering and skittering things and all those sorts of maggots.
They're crunching when you eat them. Wait, what?
Like like for me, like context is really important. Like I'm not afraid of rats inside, like pet rats, but I'm terrified of rats outside, like loose rats, like or like
because they carry disease.
Yeah, but I'm not scared of like one bug, but I'm really scared of like swarms of bugs, like
teeming swarms of bugs.
Yeah,
for sure,
like it's,
for
I don't know.
sure.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know.
I
think
get irrationally mad at wasps.
Yeah,
I don't like.
Yeah, wasps are not cool.
Oh, I will kill a wasp if I see it. They are fucking flying assholes. They get no sympathy from me.
That's right.
They're like, no,
death to all
that
wasps.
person. They're like that road rage driver, but like they inspire that anger in me.
Yeah, I at least have respect for bees because they cared enough to hate me that they were willing to die for it. And I'm like, props.
And they're round and nice, and they make honey and stuff.
Yeah, everyone knows that they're working.
Yeah, like you know.
Wasps are like, who can I fuck over today?
Wasps are like, who can I lay my eggs in their head today?
Yeah, they're just like, and the fact that they're like, I can sting you and just walk away, like, no, sir. No, sir, you cannot.
No, they have no consequences to their stinging. Yeah, unless I'm able to catch them, and like I'm a big, slow, dumb human, so I'm not gonna catch them.
Right.
Although there are some bees, I think, that their stingers don't come out when they sting. I don't remember which kind.
Yellow jackets? I don't think yellow jackets die if they sting.
No, I don't remember.
I'm
but
really not
in
enjoying
general,
the turn that this took.
Sorry.
In general, most bees do not.
So, Michal, what kind of creepy crawlies do you like? Do you like 6 legs or 8 legs or
Oh my god.
100 legs?
You know what
What's the
would be
right
really-
number of legs?
You know what would be really fun though is if we did like a phobia and beef. Like where, you know, you're like not animals that you're scared of necessarily, but just animals that you have a fucking problem with.
Things that just bug you.
Yeah,
Right?
wasps.
Like,
Everybody's gonna say
thing to tell you about malamutes.
Right? Like lemurs. Fuck those guys. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, like hedgehogs. I don't like them. Out the door. I drop kick.
Sacrilege.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Blasphemy.
It's like, why though? They're harmless. Wasps, I understand. It's like you don't like an animal like a lemur.
I gotta say it, guys. Monkeys are assholes. I'm just
Right?
gonna say it. The small ones, assholes.
Yeah,
So-
like capuchins or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like big gorillas and stuff kind of seem to keep to themselves and like whatever, like don't go
Very
near them.
shit.
You're probably cool. But the small monkeys, like you see them like invading villages and stealing people's
Yeah.
shit and just
Yeah.
living on the streets. You're like, nope.
About cats. I hate the small ones. The big ones are cool though. Like they're all chill. But like yeah,
Small
they eat me. But like
All right. Anyway, I gotta
Yeah,
run. I gotta go walk the dog.
Yeah, I also have to
Speaking of
run.
animals.
I'm just
So-
saying this is clearly fertile
Okay,
ground
thanks for
for a
joining.
creature cast.
See
That's
ya.
all. That's all I wanted to
Yeah.
say.
Brainstorming sesh. Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me.
Bye.
And everyone
Thank
else.
you.
And bye.
Good luck editing.
Yeah, that's
Bye,
gonna
guys.
be a fun time.
Sorry.
But no, it was my own audio shit that fucked it up mostly. But thanks for keeping the conversation going while I was gone as well. So
Oh, we were bad at it. We needed
Yeah,
you.
we were. Yeah, we
needed my
several
to
times.
rein things in, but it was probably pretty okay. We'll see.
All right.
I'd see, I guess.
Thank you.
All right.